Hi everybody, it's Professor Diffley. This is History 110, Early U.S. History and Government. This is a video going to go over what you need to do for the Unit 3 materials here. We'll go over the assignments for the week and do a brief run-through of the lecture slides and things like that. There'll be a couple of videos for this. Alright, let's get started. So we'll begin with the learning goals and objectives. You can see these here. Again, these are topics we're going to cover, things you should focus on, big ideas. That is the goal of the lesson here. You see for week 4, you have, excuse me, some required reading, the lecture 3, unit 3 lecture slides, obviously with the notes, video, a few websites. That is the reading. You'll see you have the exam due by the end of the week, and the discussion board due by the end of the week as well. Remember, for discussion board, you need to post 3 times your main response, which has to be at least 500 words, then 2 responses to classmates. Every response, put 12 hours in between. For the quiz unit exam, there will be 3 short answer questions, and I cover those in the video. We'll talk about that there. Here you can see the required websites and videos. I put them in a folder. Very important here for colonial social classes. There is some on the book, but a lot of the stuff for the quiz will be taken on this. You just click on the link, and it will take you to the website. This is from Colonial Williamsburg. Feel free to look around. There's more on clothing. You can see all sorts of stuff here. But use this overview for that. There is one about African-American life in Virginia colonies. This is important because this has to do with the beginning of slavery, Bacon's Rebellion, and impact on Africans and free African-Americans. Enslaved Africans, some were free in the 18th century, the era we're looking at this week, at least the first half of it. And then last but not least, there is a brief article, a brief history of the Salem witch trials. This is important because Salem witch trials will be the topic for the discussion board for this week. And let's just look at that. Yeah, you'll see I put in a link to the discussion board here. It's going to focus on the Salem witch trials. Really important here when you're talking about the witch trials. Let me go to this. Oh, well, it's off because the week hasn't started yet. Sorry. Here we go. Where are we? All right, the witch hysteria here. You'll see it's not available yet. It'll be available soon. We're going to talk about the witch trials here. There's an overview, obviously, right here. And then you go down to the questions. What I want you to focus on is the idea of whether something like this could happen again. Not witches, but a mass hysteria where people just start scapegoating, going after everybody. I want you to think about what could occur, what could make this happen again? Has something like this happened again? Are there any examples you could point to? So think about that. So again, when I say could this happen again, or something similar, I don't mean something supernatural, something going after witches, that sort of thing, because, they don't exist. But whatever, take a focus on that. So that will be the witch trials. There's stuff in the book, but make sure you look at that website as well. Especially for the discussion board. So let's go back over here to where we're at. So again, as always, there's also a Colonial Regions PDF. Just take a look at that. As you can see here, this is how I'm breaking up the colonies. So know these different regions. You got New England. You got, at this point where we're at now in the class, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. The middle colonies, New York, Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. And then these southern colonies. We'll break those into 2 regions, and this is based on the staple crop that they produce there. You got Chesapeake, you got the Tobacco Kingdom of Maryland and Virginia, and then the Southern Rice Kingdom, South Carolina and Georgia. We're really going to be looking at South Carolina in this lecture. So Virginia and South Carolina will be 2 of the big ones from this lecture, so make sure you pay attention to that. This region thing also gives a good overview of all that. All right, so as always, there's key terms. There are the lecture slides, which I will post up there soon. Apparently they're not showing, but we're going to look at them now. So let's go over to the lecture slides. So as always, remember there are notes to the lecture slides. This is important reading. Some of them have more notes than others. But the notes for especially a lot of these, see some slides like this where I just have some where I explain a lot more because it is harder to find websites or things like that. But other here I'll have bullet points. Remember, the notes section is like the textbook. As you can see here, there's a fair amount. There's a few paragraphs there. This is the background. This is stuff I would have said in classes, stuff that you would, we would have talked about. As you can see, there is a fair amount of notes. Again, there's view notes, not notes. You get it. So go from there. All right, let's jump into the slideshow here. From the beginning. All right, so creating English America, English expansion, new colonies, origins of slavery, new immigrants, crisis, and witches is the what we're looking at this week. So let's get into this. Some just previews, big topics, kind of what I just said there. Here, so exam short answer questions. So these, what's going to happen? You'll have 3 terms, 3 to 4 terms, key terms. Here's a list of 5 of them. I'll select 3 or 4 of these to put on the exam. Study them all. Don't be a gambling person. Study them all. But yeah, here are the big ones here. King Philip's War, Mercantilism, Navigation Acts, Bacon's Rebellion, and the Salem Witch Trials. These topics. So when you answer these, you got to be as detailed as possible. Assume no knowledge on the part of the professor, me who's grading this. Explain this as if you were teaching it to someone. So all the detail. These should be never shorter than a long paragraph, 5, but usually more like 7 sentences or more. If you answer some of these questions, you're going to take a couple paragraphs. And so what do you focus on? These are big ideas. Who, right? Give me what's going on, who's involved. Names, what is going on here? So King Philip's War, who's the war between, when, when is always important, where it's going on, but the what is also what caused it, what are the outcomes, that sort of thing. Why important? So who, what, when, where, and why important. Why important means the historical significance. What do I mean by that? I mean the consequences. How did this impact the world going on, right? So King Philip's War is going to have an impact on New England. It's going to have an impact on Native Americans, on the English imperial system. Mercantilism, it's an economic system. That's going to have a big impact on all sorts of things. Bacon's Rebellion, a very important one because it's going to do 2 things. It's going to be about, show social tensions. It's going to show clashes between settlers and Indians, between the rich and the poor in the colonies. It's going to lead to less indentured servitude and going to lead to increase in slavery. And it's also going to be bad for Native Americans, and then the witch trials as well. So that's what we're talking about when we do the historical significance. So again, a couple paragraphs you should be writing on these when you answer these. More info is always better. Always err on the side of providing too much info. You will get no points for brevity. Again, explicitly write a lot. Explain this to me in detail in your own words. Obviously, don't use outside sources. Just what I gave you there. Don't Google anything. Sure, better not use Wikipedia, that sort of thing. So, all right, let's get into this here. It's just a picture of colonial era there. You can see it's still a farming society. So where we're starting here is global competition and the expansion of the English Empire. So these are topics and questions to think about as we go through all this, right? How did it expand? Where did it expand? And who benefited and who got hurt? So let's start with mercantilism. Mercantilism was the dominant economic theory at the time that the governments of Europe adopted. It argued that wealth and power is measured by gold and silver, precious metals, and the more you have, the better. So the way they saw this is government should regulate economic activity. So this is the opposite of free trade. This is heavy government involvement in trade. The idea was the goal for the government is to make the country as rich and powerful as possible. In a sense, for here, with the colonies, make England, the mother country, as wealthy as possible. Enrich the government, other people will get rich by that. So make sure the economy works for the government and the country there. They viewed this as competition between other nations in Europe, and they viewed it as a zero-sum game. Zero-sum game is like poker. There can only be one winner, right? 5 of us sit down at a table. We throw in, say, $100 each into the pot. At the end of the night, only one of us is walking home with all that money. Everybody else has got nothing. So the idea was if England has X amount of gold, that is gold that Spain can never get unless it gets it from England. And so that's the idea. Once you have gold, there's a finite amount, gold and silver in the world. Whoever has the most will be the richest. And so this leads to never-ending warfare for a century or two amongst the European colonial powers like England, France, the Dutch, Spanish, and later others as well. So more into mercantilism. The idea, so how do we regulate it to control the economy here? Create favorable balance of trade. What does that mean? Export more than you import, right? This is about trade balance or trade imbalance. The idea is if we're exporting more goods that we make in, say, England, we're selling them to other people, we're getting other people's gold and silver flowing into England. If we have to buy all our goods from the outside, the opposite happens. All the gold and silver goes somewhere else. So again, note for the short answers, explain that. Just don't write favorable balance of trade. Explain what it means. Second thing, create and control colonies. Colonies are key to mercantilism. Colonies serve the mother country, the country that founded them. Why? A couple things. One, we need raw materials. For the countries, we need raw materials from the colonies. And the colonists are now consumers of these manufactured products. So the raw materials and foodstuffs, grown, will be sent back to the mother country. The raw materials turned into finished products sold around everywhere, and the colonies are an even bigger part of that in the sense that they are consumers. The other, control trade within the empire. No free trade. High tariffs. Make it really expensive if regular people want to buy foreign goods, right? So a tariff is a tax on foreign goods. So if there's something, if you put a tax on it, it raises the price for the person buying it here in that country. The goal is to, encourage people to buy English-made goods, right? Why? Because even if a foreign good, was originally cheaper, if you slap a high tax on it, now it's really expensive. So this is meant to encourage local industry. The way they did this too was navigation laws and these enumerated goods. What this meant was the English passed a law that said for colonists, if they wanted to trade anything, the biggest, highest priced items, tobacco, sugar, tea, that sort of thing, they had to go and sail on British ships from the Americas back to England. They had to go through an English port once. And then they could be re-exported. So, again, control it. Everything's staying within England here. English ships, English sailors, they come into London, let's say, or Northampton, or one of the Hamptons. Now there's taxes on that. Now when they sell it, they tax it again. So this is a way for the government to make lots of money. Heavily regulate industry. Tell them what to make, when to make it. Create monopolies, right? So that make it so that only one company, that this way they don't have to compete against anybody else. They can control the entire thing and make lots of money off of it. And the other is use piracy and warfare to accomplish this. In other words, anything goes. And remember, this is a zero-sum game. So if we're England and Spain has a colony, or the Dutch have a colony, we have to take it from them, and that will lead to open warfare. Other is use pirates. This is a cost-saving tactic, right? Why risk my Navy's boats when I could pay you to raid enemy ships? You steal a Spanish gold ship, you keep half of it, you give half to us. So again, this is a cutthroat system that is meant to be dominated by the one country there. Again, enumerated goods are those just to reiterate, the goods that have to go through those ships. All right, that's the end of this video. We'll pick it up in part 2. Thank you.